Hey, second grade, welcome to week 7 math with me, Miss Stone. This week we are looking at how we can write time to the hour. So we are moving away from coins and we are moving on to being able to tell time. So we're going to go into that now. To start telling time, of course, we need a clock. Here we see that we have what we call an analog clock. An analog clock has the times on it, around it, and then it also has the hands. So we have a hand that tells the hour and a hand that tells the minute. So today we're going to figure out how we can tell just the hour, and then we're going to incorporate next week how we can tell time to the half hour and to individual minutes as well. But first we're going to start by being able to tell the different parts of the clock and how we can tell time to the hour. Here on this clock we see, and any analog clock, we will see that we have a big hand and a little hand. Here we see that the little hand has an arrow pointing to it and it says the hour hand. The big hand tells the minute, but the little hand tells the hour. So when we're trying to tell time to the hour, all we have to do is look at where the little hand is on the clock in order to tell that. Here it is important to note that our two hands are two different colors. We have the blue hand, which is the long hand, and it is the minute hand. And what we are focusing on today is the red hand, the short hand, and it is telling time to the hour. So here we see that the long hand is pointing to 12 and the little hand is pointing to 3. Anytime that the big hand or the long hand is pointing to 12, that means it is on the hour. So that means if the little hand is pointing to 3, it is 3 o'clock. So the time on this clock is 3 o'clock, and that is because the little hand or short hand is pointing to the 3, and that tells the hour, 3 o'clock, and the long hand or the big hand is pointing to the 12, which means that it is on the hour. So this is 3 o'clock. I like this clock because it breaks down how we can differentiate the hands and what the numbers on clocks actually mean. So again, we see that the hands on this clock, we have a little hand and we have a big hand. And the big hand, when pointing to the white, means that it is pointing to an hour. And when the little hand is pointing to a black number, that means it is a minute. So when we are telling time to the hour, when I was saying that when the big hand is pointing to the 12, that means it is on the hour. That is because there are 60 minutes in an hour, so the 12 represents the 60th minute, so the last minute in the hour, therefore making it the hour. So when the little hand is pointing to the 10, if the big hand were pointing to the 12, it would be 10 o'clock. So here we see another example of how we can tell time, and obviously all of these clocks are different, but we notice that they all have the same numbers around them and they also have the two hands. So as previously discussed, when we have the big hand pointing to the 12, we know that means that it's on the hour. The 60th minute has been completed. So when it is pointing, the little hand is pointing at the 5, we know that means that it is 5 o'clock. So it's pretty easy to tell. All we have to do is make sure that the big hand is pointing to the 12 and the little hand is pointing to one of the numbers around the clock, and therefore we know that that time is 5 o'clock. Alright, on our next slide, I want you to practice on your own. So I'm going to give you some time to look at the clock, and I want you to think of the answer and see if you get it correct. So I'm going to leave this up here for a couple seconds. I want you to look at the clock and see if you can tell what time is shown. If you need to pause the video to give yourself more time, please do so. Make sure that you are using the strategy of looking where the big hand is and the little hand. Remember, the big hand is the minute and the little hand is the hour, and we're focusing on the hour. So we see on the clock that it is 10 o'clock. And when we look at our standard below, it says we are not only able to tell time, but we are able to write time. So although the answer is 10 o'clock, we can choose one of two ways to write this. We can write 10 and then spell out o'clock, or we can write it with just our number form. And we see that when we do the 10, O apostrophe clock, that's our way of writing it out, or we can just do our numbers, which is the second option as well. When we have the 00 at the end of that, that means that the big hand was pointing to the 12 because we finished out our hour. We finished out the 60th minute in our hour, and we're starting all over again. So we see the two different ways to also write time. All right, great job. We have now learned how to write and tell time to the hour. We are going to focus next week on getting into the more difficult parts of telling time, which is the different minutes and how we can use different strategies for that. And if you are able to show me in your classwork this week that you are mastering the concept of being able to tell time on the hour, then I might bump the rigor even before next week so that we can get started and master new concepts in terms of telling time.